back, episode 6. I'm gonna go 6 as a wild guess of Growers Not Showers. Just me and Jack today. But topic of discussion that I want to hit off this week is Sam Sulek. So Sam Sulek competed at the Arnold's Classic. Was it what was it? Novice or something like that?
Oh, what the was the Arnold Amateur, wasn't it?
Amateur, that's the one. Yeah, fucking hell, my brain went mush there. But he looked really good, I can't lie. He, compared to the previous show that he competed in, which he also won, I don't know if it was the lighting on the stage, but he didn't look as conditioned. His peak looked worse. He looked a lot more fuller, but he looked a bit more bloated, so he lost a bit of definition. In the Arnold, he looked a bit smaller, but he kept the definition. He looked a lot drier. You can really see the difference in his legs, like the striations, and you can even see the separation in his quads, which is fucking nuts.
I wonder if he dug any more or if he just peaked better, because I don't know. Yeah, but to be fair, I think he probably would have had to, because it was quite a big difference. But when you've got that much tissue, and I know people are like, oh, but he's not open. He's not an IFBB Pro. He's open. Yeah, he's still got a lot of tissue. But when you got that much tissue, a good or a bad peak makes a big difference. Like showing up flat can look spilled, versus showing up crisp or full can look like infinitely leaner. You know.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I saw like videos of him like even backstage and a couple of days before, and like he looked really fucking good, like striations in his legs, everything. I think it was just a combination of not peaking properly, as well as the lighting on the stage not being, because it was an amateur show compared to the Arnold, which is obviously a really big show. And again, like he's self-coached as well, so I think he's deceptively knowledgeable. I think he comes across as a meathead, but he's got access to some very high-level bodybuilders. He trained with Jay Cutler, and like he's in talks with a lot of like pro IFBB pros now. So he's got access to really good information. So people might think that he's meathead and he doesn't know what he's doing, but like his physique demonstrates that he does know what he's doing. You know,
I wouldn't confuse meathead with like doesn't know what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like,
okay, there we go.
no. Like, because he's like, he's a bit of a meathead. Like, he likes to lift heavy and just kind of like train whatever, but he still like creates stimulus to grow. And like, I mean, I don't know if his food's meathead. His food's like kind of low-key irresponsible is what I'd call it. But like
chocolate milk.
Yeah, exactly, mate. You know, like off season full of like being borderline pre-diabetic. But like, I mean, you know, I'm sure he just kind of like, I'm sure he did ask and followed the tenets of like, oh yeah, as you get towards the show, like increase your carbs, mainly increase your fats a little bit, kind of like just like a classic linear load. But like some of the meathead advice works. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you do just live hard and heavy, and you do just eat a little bit more and move a little bit less as you get towards a show, you're gonna peak. You know, it's not like perfect, but like, who the fuck cares? He still looks good.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like it's so impressive. Like people are always under the impression that like, you know, just because you're an influencer, you can be a good bodybuilder, or vice versa. Just because you're a bodybuilder, you can be an influencer. That's just not the case. It's the same thing with coaching. Just because you're a fantastic coach doesn't mean you're going to be a good bodybuilder. And just because you're a fantastic bodybuilder doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. There's plenty of fantastic bodybuilders that make terrible coaches, at least from what I've heard. But it's a different tool set in order to become a good coach than what it takes to be a good bodybuilder. Yes, it's the same avenue. You're doing the same shit, but you also need to implement different skill sets, you know?
Absolutely. I think often what makes a very good bodybuilder is just shut up and do. But what makes a good coach is knowing how to do. Like, I think coaching is a lot of thinking, and bodybuilding is a lot of trying not to think too much. You know, like if you think about like coach versus athlete in a prep, the coach is like thinking of everything, and the athlete is just like, try not to think of anything at all, just try and go with it. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what makes it so much more impressive that he prepped himself, because like as a coach, there's a reason coaches get coached, you know, like There's a certain level of autonomy I adopt with my own programming. If there's like, Jack, I want to put this in, and like he double checks it, or I'm like, oh, okay, I think we should make this call, and then you just double check it. Like as a coach, there's a certain level of autonomy because I know my shit. But that all goes out the window when you go into prep. You don't want to be thinking about like, training their rest day carbs, or fucking, how do I, avoid training this muscle group or whatever. Like, I think it demonstrated that he's got like a capability to be a bodybuilder. Obviously, he's a pro now. It's going to be really fucking interesting to see how he handles having that following as well as being a pro bodybuilder.
Yeah,
because I don't want him to be in a position where he's focusing more on his content and like putting bodybuilding aside. Because like now he's a professional body, he could do like really well. I think if he really dialed in, which he has the potential to, he could become potentially even placing at the Olympia. But at some point, certain things in your life need to take a backseat, and like it's going to be difficult for him to handle all the fame, the negativity, people be, claiming that he's an influencer now that he's actually a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah, I think Sam has kind of, in my opinion, Sam's shown to me that I think he will like continue with bodybuilding above all else, because it does seem to be a passion. Like, and I think he showed that with his performance on stage. And yeah, I mean, the pressure that Sam would have been under to like perform, like, I mean, for those who follow me for a while know that like I was feeling pressure like coming up to my first show, and I still feel that pressure. Like I'm fucking no one compared to Sam Sulek. Compared to most people, I'm no one, but like compared to Sam Sulek especially, I'm like, bro, no one's watching you, man. But like there's still that pressure, you know what I mean? So I think the fact that he saw that first prep through and did so fucking tremendously is good. And as well, I'm really glad that he did look so as good as he did, because I think if like the bodybuilding industry, people would have had something harsh to say if he just looked fine and went pro. But he did truly look good. Like he got in condition, he got on stage, his posing was decent, it improved. He clearly took on board judges' feedback. He showed a distinct ability to improve show to show. Like, there's not much else you could really want from him other than having more tissue and being a little bit more polished, and that comes with time. Like it's his second show, man. So with that being said, me and Camille were aiming to go pro in 2 shows. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be a dream. Yeah, interesting week. I had a bit of like an epiphany. We spoke about this like at a call we just had actually, like 20 minutes ago. Post prep, like I don't know how to describe it, like mood swings.
It's like post-show blues, isn't it? It's like post-show blues.
Yeah, post-show blues. Yeah, exactly. It's like I didn't even need to step on stage, but just get into that body fat, that was enough. And like ever since I came back from, obviously I had the holiday in Poland after the photo shoot, and I came back, just wasn't the same. I didn't have that same like autonomy, like everything is like tick box, and like going that transition and phase from cutting to bulking is so hard. Is actually like to get it spot on. And like you said, the less you think the better, because I was thinking way too much and I was doing too little. Like I had my fucking emo phase doing the powerlifting. My food wasn't right. I was sleeping like ass. I went, I was going out fucking drinking all the time. And it was just like, and then I wondered why I was like pissed off all the time and sad. It was just because I wasn't doing bodybuilding. Like, what prep does to you, it makes you not want to be a bodybuilder. But if you go for a prep, you are a bodybuilder. That's what separates being a bodybuilder and just a guy who goes to the gym to get bigger muscles. Prep, that's what separates it. So it's like, I'm shying away from it, but now I understand like that's the beauty of it. That's why it's so mentally challenging, because it's going to force you to question everything about you. Like I remember like when I was deep into prep, and I was just like, I didn't like anything about the way I looked. I was like, my legs look small. I was like, I didn't even care about my calves. My calves look tiny. And I was like, oh, I should have done more forearm direct work. I'm going to do that in my fucking gaining phase, or like. My erector's not straight and at this body weight. I was like, I wanted striations, like dumb shit like that. but it's like you only really understand it until you go through prep, you know. And it's like, yeah, it's just such a disgustingly beautiful experience. It's the only way I can describe it.
People underestimate. I always say to people like prep is a head fuck, and I don't think people realize how quickly it kicks in.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Like you like people will be like, oh yeah, I know prep's gonna be a head fuck, whatever, and then like some like I've got clients in prep, a client will message me and be like, hey man, I like wasn't quite able to get strawberries from my meal plan. What do you think I should do? What should I do? Like kind of in a little bit of a panic, and I'll be like, remember when I said prep was a head fuck? Like this is what I mean. I was like, right, either give them a miss and have more tomorrow, or swap them for something. Like, how many calories have you got there? Like 100 calories. Just have 100 calories of fruit, mate. You'll be fine. Like, have part of a banana or have a fucking banana. It's not going to kill you. Like, you'll be fine. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they eat, and then like, yeah, I don't know why I was stressing. Like, people will be like, it's so funny. It's like you know that like it's going to be a head fuck, and then it still head fucks you, and you don't quite realize. But yeah, oh yeah, I wanted to say as well, coming back to what you said about having a bit of like autonomy within coaching, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of like, that's kind of a similar thing I do with Tom is I'll say like, hey Tom, I kind of want to do this, I want to do that. What do we think? I think when you're really involved in bodybuilding, it's hard to just be like completely take the reins coach, particularly year round. Like in a diet, yeah, bro, I'm not doing shit. Like in a growth phase, there are things you do want to do and you do want to get a bit excited about and you do want to try, but you don't want to like self-coach because that gets a bit messy. But just having someone else to be like, don't do that or do that is good. Like just like run it past. Like, yeah, often in the off season I'll just ask for macros and I'll sort my own meal plan. In a diet phase I'll be like, tell me what the fuck to eat, bro, and I will just follow that. Like simple as, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think it's a good approach to have is kind of comfortably being able to like modify and adapt and communicate with your coach. I think that's where a lot of progress happens, because if you're completely told what to do, the odds of it being the most exciting thing possible that's going to work is pretty low. And you don't want to follow something that you're not truly engaged in. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, sorry, I cut you off. Go on, mate. What were you going to say?
No, I completely 100% agree. I feel like once you develop a certain amount of knowledge, like you want to participate in your own progress.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's a fine difference between self-coaching and like, you know, suggesting something to your coach and him being like, yeah, all sound, yeah, go on, or like, okay, no, maybe you should make this adjustment, or like we'll do it a little bit differently.
Yep.
And two heads for one job, you know, like together. So I think that's really beneficial. And also like when you're in a gaining phase, you actually got your head screwed on so you can actually think properly. But when you're on a cut, it's just like, like I don't even know if I should do 10 to 12 reps or 8 to 10. Like you fucking tell me. Like
yeah, in a diet you just don't want to take on that additional stress. But I think again, like this is kind of why I like, or why we both like working with coaches as well, is because you give them a plan and they'll be like, I don't like it for this reason. People are very like articulate with their feelings. They're like, oh, you know, I just don't like hyperextensions. I'd rather do a barbell hinge because I just enjoy them more. And you're like, okay, cool. Whereas often if you're coaching like less advanced people, which we both still do, and there's like a time and a place for it, the feedback you might get is like, this feels weird, and you're like, okay, we're going to go dig in for some good feedback here. But when you're coaching a coach, like if I give Camille something like on the hinges where you were like, I don't think I can quite posteriorly tilt enough to hinge at the minute, I'm like, that's fucking like, thank you. Like you've made my job 10 times easier. Okay, hinging's off the table for now. We know what we need to work on. Let's work on that. I'm happy with Camille working on that. He can share with me what he's doing. Sweet, cool. And then we can start to like build that back in. Whereas if I have to like go scrounging for that, it can be difficult. And sometimes there's a time and a place for me to be like, okay, you just don't have enough control of your pelvis to do this hinge. And you have to kind of help them teach that. But part of the beauty and part of the fun of coaching coaches is you skip a lot of the troubleshooting and you skip a lot to the fun stuff, in terms of like, I can just go like, hey Camille, here's the plan, and you can be like, yes, no, whatever, or we can like collaborate together, and it's more fun and more exciting. Like we had a call before this going over like business stuff, yes, but also like some coaching and progress stuff that you've got in the works, which we're both looking forward to. If that comes to fruition, we'll see. But you know, it's cool to be able to just like talk about things and be a bit more collaborative, rather than just be like you know, the client's like, this sucks and I don't like it and I don't know what to do. And you're like, okay, I have to pick apart everything, you know, even though we both still work with lifestyle and they're great. There's pros and cons, but working with people who are really passionate, like passionate athletes and coaches is a hell of a lot more fun, I would say.
I think a big difference between like coach and lifestyle and coaches, one I can think of is like form feedback, for example. Like the difference, you know, giving coaches form feedback is going to be a lot more minute details. Like, for example, you know, biasing like the lengthened portion, you know, tempo, maybe your breath work, are you bracing properly, things of that nature, more minute things. Whereas a lot of my lifestyle clients is like, mate, you had like 5 reps there. Like, or it's like, come on, like you're making the exercise easier. You're using a lot of momentum. Like it's a lot more simple. So like, it's definitely a different approach that you got to take with coaches, obviously with their level of knowledge. But another thing I enjoy about coaching coaches is their level of understanding is greater. So like when I'm explaining something to a lifestyle client and when I'm explaining something to a coach, I explain it in 2 very different ways. When I'm explaining to a coach, I might use all this fancy terminology, but that's the way that I understand it. Compared to when I'm explaining it to a client where, you know, I want to explain in a way that's more digestible to them because they don't have that background in training, nutrition and rehab, you know. So it definitely is like it's a different experience. Like you said, there's pros and cons to both. But going back to that point of autonomy, like with coaches specifically, I think it is super, super important. Because like it also, like as a coach, you need to see how other coaches coach. Like for me, using you as a role model was hugely important in me. It's true though, it's true.
I don't pay him to say that. He says
I said this of my own accord, but like Jack has been like the biggest role model for me in terms of coaching. You know, like I don't usually talk to him about like clients that I struggle because I haven't had many clients where I've been like, oh fuck, I'm Jenny stuck. But when I do, you know, I drop a message and like, you know, we walk through it step by step. Like, okay, no, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? How do we improve this? And then we make an action plan. And it's like, it's super important to work with other coaches with like varying levels of ability that are either more knowledgeable or more knowledgeable in other areas, and coaches are less knowledgeable for you. And like that's why what the academy allows me to do is because I can not only teach other coaches, but I can also learn from other coaches. And there's something that I can learn from everyone. You know, it's the same thing I say about osteopathy. It's like every osteopath has a different way of treating. I've got tutors who focus on cranial osteopathy, which is like using the force. You can make a patient better by touching them and transferring good energy into them, something like that. I got coaches that focus on rehab. Oh, no, not coaches. I've got lecturers who focus on rehab. I've got lecturers who focus on nutrition and supplementation. I've got lecturers who focus more on holisticism and osteopathy and really nail that. It's like they all make patients better. There's no right or wrong answer, but that's the beauty of it. And it's the same thing with coaching. It's like in hindsight, we all get the end result goal the same, but the way we go about it is different. Jack is a bit more, I wouldn't say professional, but like compared to me, I'm very like animated. I'm making jokes. I'm being a bit of an idiot in my check-ins. You know, I might even fucking take my pose off and hit a pose at some point. And like some people will be like, yeah, that's fucking retarded. But like my clients will watch it and be like, Joe, it was really fucking funny, for example. And like every single coach has a different way of handling things. But ultimately, as long as you're still nailing the essentials and you're still getting them to the end goal, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter.
Agree, man. I tell you what, we spoke about lifestyle clients, right? So definitely not because we can turn it into a reel. give me like top 3 tips that you think most coaches are like could benefit from for lifestyle clients. Like 3 tips for dealing with lifestyle clients, and we'll definitely not turn this into a reel. Definitely not.
1, find out their why. So a large portion of getting lifestyle clients to their goal is motivation, because a lot of, you know, when we have coaches, we have bodybuilders, those other people, they're already self-motivated. You don't need to tell them to do the essentials. But with a lot of my clients, you know, I have to tell them to weigh themselves every day. I've got to tell them, okay, are we hitting our macros? If we're not tracking, are we make sure we're measuring our body weight, you know, hydration, things of that nature. So find out their why, 1. 2, form feedback. A lot of lifestyle clients will be intimidated to take form feedback, but the level of like a video that you need to get to give form feedback from a lifestyle client compared to a bodybuilder or a coach is much different. With a bodybuilder or a coach, you know, the angle is more important. But with a lifestyle client, you could argue the angle is less important because the variables that we need to make sure that are there, we don't need the perfect angle. You know, it's about intensity, execution, you know, arm path, etc. Stuff of that nature. And 3, I would say, is don't overcomplicate it. So as coaches, we have a tendency to, you know, do really fucking in-depth check-ins, make sure we're tracking, like I said, hydration, salt intake, fucking all of this shit. Nah, if it's a lifestyle client, make check-in as simple for them as possible, you know? Everything you explain to them, make it as easy as possible. Don't tell them about fucking myorep partials. They don't want to hear that shit. Make it as easy as possible for them to follow, and they will fucking follow it.
Yep. Bro, you fucking killed that. Holy shit. Man's killed it.
In the zone.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do the reverse. I'll say the 3 tips I'll give for working with like more advanced people. I think 1 immediately springs to mind would be understand that people who are more advanced and more involved are super neurotic. They're going to really, really care, and they're really going to give a shit about everything that they do. And they're going to get almost borderline anxious if they're not able to be perfect. So expect a lot of perfectionism from very high level clients. Kind of leading off of that, I would say setting expectations is far, far, far greater for these guys or gals, because they want to, again, because they have a kind of higher amount of like, what's the word I'm looking for? State nervousness, is that the word I'm looking for? I forget what it is, the psychological term for like how just inherently anxious you are. I think it's state anxiety. There we go.
Anxiety, yeah. They
have a higher level of state anxiety. So if you are or trait anxiety is what you're born with. State anxiety is based on the situation you're in. Anyway, but those people who are just generally more anxious, whether it's genetic or what, when they care more, set expectations for them. If those expectations kind of deviate from, or the reality deviates from expectations, they're going to feel quite stressed. So if you set that expectation of, hey, this is going to happen, this might happen, this might happen, people are a bit more on board. Because if you really set expectations properly, things probably shouldn't deviate too far from that. So then they'll be a bit more along for the ride. Whereas they might set their expectations over here, and then over here happens and you're in big trouble. And then the 3rd and final thing is don't discount athlete input, but know how to use it. So athletes who are a bit more advanced, coaches who are a bit more advanced, again, are great at telling you what they think, which is good. You can't always listen to that, but you absolutely should hear it. There's times where you should listen, and ignoring it is actively dumb. And there's times where that person is getting in their own way, and part of the reason why they need a coach is for you to kind of come in and help them along. And so learning that person, their psychology, and kind of why they're saying what they're saying. Is it actually useful advice? Is it actually beneficial? Or are they just kind of skewing themselves or trying to get a certain outcome? I think that's a really important thing to have. It's not a blanket statement of every time Jim tells me that he's tired, I listen. It depends on how he's telling me he's tired. Was there any lead up? Is that reflected in any of the other variables? Why might he be saying he's tired? Are there any other things that we can control to enhance his ability to not feel tired and be energetic that isn't going to take away from his progress, etc., etc., etc. So those would be my three fucking tips. That was way too long to be a reel. That's going to be a fun one to edit.
If you coaches or bodybuilders or more advanced people in the gym the same way as lifestyle athletes, you're a shit coach, period. And it goes back to the point of you need to be tailored towards your clients, not the other way around, not your clients tailored towards you. You know, how you're going to motivate someone will highly change depending on what the goal is and their level of experience and what they're trying to achieve. You know, and there's, you know, certain things that we're tracking, you know, like I said, with more advanced clients, they're going to want a certain level of perfection there. You know, they're going to be tracking a lot more things. They're going to be more on point with, you know, getting their steps in, for example, or hitting the macros, or actually tracking their calories. With lifestyle clients, you know, you can still get fantastic results without being a perfectionist.
Yep.
You know, you can still get fantastic results without having to track macros. you know, as long as you make it easy for them to follow. If that's not the case, then what the fuck are you doing as a coach? What's the point of you having that? Your problem as a coach is to problem solve, you know, and if their problem is that it's difficult, solve that problem. Make it as easy for them to follow as possible. It's that simple. It's not fucking rocket science, you know.
Yeah, don't fear progressive plans that get progressively more in depth. Like, just because I've started people off by just tracking calories and protein, or even just protein, or even not tracking anything at all. But you can still get those people, if it makes sense to, it's the big asterisk there, because it doesn't for everyone, but you can still get those people to being like full-blown meal plan wankers with sodium and water and all that shit, just like me and Camille, right? If it makes sense, like me and Camille didn't join the gym like with a fucking meal plan in hand, you know, thinking about meal 3 in 5 minutes time or whatever, right? But we got here by like progressing ourselves. So don't be afraid to, if you're a coach who like, particularly, I think it's easy for coaches like me or Camille to fall into that trap because we're coaches. It feels like the shit we give out should be really complicated, and it can be, but it only makes sense when it makes sense. Like, if someone joins up and they're brand new to the gym, like Camille talked about, yeah, I'm not going to give them, what was it, the example you gave, like myo rep length and partials or whatever the fuck. No, I'm not going to worry about, like, if someone's low on time, I'm not going to worry about differentiating between their teres, their rear delt, their lat, their tib, you know, fucking, I don't know, their glute med, or like subdivisions of the glute. You know, like, these are things that we don't need to worry about. But if I have someone where it makes sense to train things like abduction, like tibs, to subdivide the glute, to subdivide the back, whatever, to subdivide the pec even, like, cool, yeah, absolutely, I will. But you know, that need isn't there all the time. And it's the same for, like, don't be afraid to give someone a plan where, like, I've got clients where their sheets have like 1 million fucking tabs at the bottom and they're loving it. I've got clients who have like 3 tabs and it'll be like check-in, food, training. And it's like, that's it. And like, for them, that's plenty. You know, I've even coached people who have just like wanted just barely a helping hand. So we started out on WhatsApp and then we've progressed to sheets. Like, meet the client where they're at. And as long as you progress them, and like, you're not, you know, if you've got a client on WhatsApp for whatever reason and they're still there 2 years later, brother, what are you doing? Come on. Like, if I've got a client who's got 3 tabs on their sheets and it's the same a year later, nah, something's gone wrong. But if we start out that way and we progress our way up, cool, that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But just because you have the ability to make something incredibly complex doesn't mean you always should. So yeah, meet the client where they're at and then progress them. There's no reason that you shouldn't progress that. If you take a brand new client and, like, you know, I give them something really advanced, I'm just going to piss them off, you know, like, especially if you're an expensive coach. You don't need to be expensive through having lots of flashy shit on your sheets. Be expensive by being good. You know, like, I've got people who charge me the same amount as each other, and there's some that have, again, like I said, 3 tabs and some that have like 12. They're both getting the value that they need out of me because they're both progressing as rapidly as they can, and they're both happy, and that's fine. If that person who has 12 tabs needs less, they will get less. If the person needs 3, needs more, they'll get more. But for them, it's individualized. You know, I always say to people, I promise I'll let Camille talk in a minute because I've had a coffee and I'm hogging the spotlight right now. But
man, you go crazy, mate. You enjoy that. You needed it.
I always say to people, like, if you took me or Camille's plans and you removed the branding, like, I don't know, you put them into like a hat, you had no idea that they were like Archer Academy affiliate clients and you had to guess who they were. You shouldn't be able to tell that they were made by the same coach. It should feel like they're all of the same quality, but it should feel like you get an idea for who the client is, not for who the coach is. You shouldn't look at my plan and go, oh yeah, that's Jack's plan. Or that's made by Jack, sorry. You should look at Camille's plan that I've made for him and go, that looks like a plan for Camille. That looks like a plan for, you know, a young junior bodybuilder, up and coming, first off season after a photo shoot, etc., trying to focus on X, Y, Z. Like, without even knowing the context of the client, you should be able to kind of pick that shit apart based on the context of the sheets, right? But you shouldn't be able to go, oh, that's written by Jack. You know, I think a lot of coaches, you can read their plans and you can be like, I know who the fuck wrote that. Like, it's very clear as day, you know, and that immediately tells you, as soon as you've got a style of coaching, you fucked up. It's not like being an author. It's not like making clothing. Like, the same way that you wouldn't expect your GP to have a style of health, you know, like, oh, my son's got asthma. Okay, well, I'm a drugs GP, so I'm just going to give him some drugs. Or I'm the exercise GP, so I'm going to encourage him to exercise. Like, no, like, look at what's in front of you and do what's best, you know? Same thing that we do as coaches. is we don't just give like the same shit. You know, nothing should really be templated. The only thing that I have that's templated really, I think, is like my supplement guide. I think that's pretty much it. And even that gets tweaked, you know, based on people's blood work. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're a coach in the academy, and you're spending time investing your knowledge, so your ability to coach higher level athletes goes up, right?
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you can't come back down.
Yeah.
So like, just because you know more doesn't mean you can't coach someone who doesn't need all that knowledge. It's actually quite the contrary. Because you can still, don't be scared to apply high level principles to people who aren't that, you know, knowledgeable. They're still doing that high level principle. They might not understand it. Cool, that's fine, but they're still doing it, you know. For example, this is not that high level, but like rest day or training day cardio, or calories. For example, I was explaining to one of my clients who's relatively new to the gym, and he was like, now that you say that, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, yeah, like once you actually get a little bit of an understanding, you can start implementing these principles, and that's how you get the 1%ers. And when the 1%ers stack over time, they compound, and that's what, you know, separates a fantastic physique from a great physique in 12 months time, or a fantastic transformation from a shit transformation in 12 months time. It's the little 1%ers. And that's why bodybuilders are so good at this shit, is because we value those 1%ers so much. We value that extra rep, we value that extra time on attention, we value that, you know, better form, or, you know, better execution, better arm path, whatever it is. As long as it's a fucking progression, we value it. And that can be applied to coaching, you know. Always try and progress your clients in some way, form, or another. Another point that I wanted to discuss is like setting goals for clients. You've seen me talk about this before, but it's like, have a primary goal, right? So you have a primary goal of a phase to, I don't know, focus on growing arms, to lose weight for a photo shoot, to fucking do whatever the primary goal of the phase is, right? But have sub goals or secondary goals, and have them mapped out to like a long, medium, or short, medium, and long-term goal, right? So like, I don't know, we've got a 12-week arm growth phase. In the first 3 weeks, I really want to dial in and make sure that you're fucking tracking calories, right? So that makes every single check-in more meaningful, right? If you don't have these secondary goals, and, you know, as bodybuilders do, if they have a really good week, a check-in can be quite boring, because it's like, yeah, cool, you know, run it again next week, right? So even though they're working towards a primary goal, and it's going to be a short check-in because everything they did that week is good, you know, and you don't need to make any changes, I can be like, okay, you know, everything we did this week is good, but like, have you been able to, you know, X, Y, and Z, the little goals that we're working towards? The goals can be anything, right? They can be training related, they can be rehab related if they've got an injury, they can be personal development. Like, you know, for example, for me, like, I don't know, don't go out this week. Like, or only go out once this week and have 2 pints, you know, lifestyle things. But like, we know how important lifestyle factors are in terms of training and performance, you know, energy, mood, etc., how you're feeling, sleep as well. And like, if we can help manage their lifestyle as well, that's going to have a huge influence on their training and ultimately their goal. So it's like, learn to set goals for your clients, not just primary but secondary, because it also really helps with motivation. So if they've got goals set for 3, 6, and 9 weeks, so instead of doing like doing a 12-week phase, you know, week 6 out of 12 or week 9 out of 12, they're gonna get switched off because it's the same shit, right? But if you do like smaller phases of like, okay, no, we're gonna do week 1 out of 4 of really locking in, I don't know, nutrition, like I said, then they're a bit more switched on, and each phase doesn't last too long, so they're more fucking engaged in their own process. It's all like minor tweaks in order to stimulate and motivate your client more. You know, a lot of people will fall into the category of, my client needs to motivate themselves. To an extent, yes, they have to walk the walk, but there are still things you can do as a coach, like I just said, in order to help your client motivate themselves. You know, it is part of your remit as a coach to help motivate your client.
Yeah. If you're waiting on your client to magically self-motivate, you are fucked. Because, like, I mean, everyone says it all the time on social media. Yeah, like, motivation doesn't last forever. Okay, so then why are you hinging your business on it doing that? You know, like, you're not motivated all the time. Your clients aren't going to be motivated all the time. So you should probably have some indication of like affecting that. And I think this is again where like one of the issues of the coaching industry is it's got kind of like an, I guess I don't know how to describe it, like an unfair storyteller kind of element to it. Like I always say to coaches, you love training so much that you're going to make a career out of it, right? So the way me and Camille approach training is fundamentally different to like Jane, the accountant, who's paying us some cash to make her lose the baby weight. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's not interested in the gym. She's just joined up. She's working as an accountant. She doesn't love the gym as much as us. She's paying us money to do something that she's struggling to do on her own. Like, there's fundamentally very different mindsets there. And the issue is coaches get into a habit of like, oh, this person just doesn't want it. Because if I wanted to lose weight, I just fucking would. And it's like, well, your business is, hey, are you struggling? Come and approach me. And then you say to that person, you're still struggling. Fuck off then. Like, what is your business model? It's like a mechanic being upset that this car you've brought in is broken. Take it back. Like, that is your job, to fix that thing. So it is literally the same thing as a GP getting upset that you're ill, or a mechanic getting upset that your car's busted. You imagine you go up to a mechanic and he's like, your car is damaged, like your car is broken. You'd be like, yeah. And he'd be like, the car doesn't want it bad enough. Take it away. Like, yeah. What? You'd be like, why do you think I came to you, man? It's like if you turn around to your financial advisor, you're like, I'm in debt. And he's like, you're in debt? Piss off. You're like, what? I only work with people who are rich and willing to get more rich. And it's like, what the fuck is the point then? Do you know what I mean? And I think coaches, like, that's something you hear over and over and over in industry is like, oh, this client didn't want it. You know, this client, like, the client just needs to do better. Your clients need to be more motivated. And it's like, if they were really that fucking motivated, particularly lifestyle clients, I'm sure if they're motivated, they can eat less and they can train. Like, me and you did it when we first joined the gym. We were motivated enough to go, okay, I should probably eat a bit more protein and lift heavier. Cool. We did that. We made progress. Like, we fundamentally did that. So the people that you're kind of like hoping to get are people who just aren't going to be attracted to your business. Like, you're hoping to get people who are bodybuilders, but even then, like, you know, bodybuilders who come to me or Camille, people who are more serious, they still have fundamental flaws of their training, right? They still have things they need to work on, and that's why they've got a coach. Like, it's like Camille, if you know, when Camille first joined and he was like, oh, I've never done a proper photo shoot diet. Can you imagine if I was like, you've never done a proper photo shoot diet? Fuck off. Like, what? Bizarre. This whole analogy of like, you can't motivate clients, they just have to help themselves, is just made by people who are so good at self-motivating in this industry that they made a career out of it. And I think that's the issue. You know, that is the issue. It's like mechanics saying like, all these people can't just fix their own car. That's what I did. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're not mechanics. They don't give a shit. They'd rather pay you to do it for them. It's the exact same thing. It's so dumb. Or doctors being like, oh, you're ill. Well, I learned medicine, and I whenever I'm ill, I just apply my knowledge of medicine. So go learn medicine. And it's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So this whole idea of you can't help clients is just backwards and shit. But yeah. I'm acutely aware of the time, mate. Did you want to wrap it up, or have you got any more that you wanted to run through?
I think that's it. Yeah, I've got clinic. I've got to go heal people with my hands, see, so.
All right, mate. I'll let you promote yourself, do the outro.
Yeah, so if you want to get coached by me, or if you need any advice, especially in terms of rehab, because I'm an osteopath, Camille_. Fucking hell, butchered that one, didn't I?
Bro, it's hard, isn't it?
Academy. Yeah, where's my coffee, mate? Fucking hell. If you want to go find Jack, the absolute mastermind behind everything, Jack_Archer Academy. Thank you everyone for listening, and take care. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you, everyone. I forgot to go to the recording bit. Thank you, everyone. Bye.